Video games like Postal.
Going postal.
Going postal.
New video game. It's called Postal.
There are a lot of people that really wish we would go away, but it's never going to happen.
Their whole premise is so over the top. It's so ridiculous.
There was a video game called Postal. We just ran around shooting people.
Oh, this is going to piss off your viewers, isn't it? Oh,
well. Going Postal, The Legacy Foretold. A new documentary about the history of running with scissors. On Apple TV, Amazon, and Blu-ray. Go to goingpostaldoc.com. That's goingpostaldoc.com. And tell them In the Keep sent you. Hey man, are you tired? Coffee's just not doing it for you these days. Let's talk about something different. Let's talk about cacao. Cacao comes from the theobroma plant. Broma means food, and theo means, well, God. So why aren't more of us talking about this godlike food source? Packed with antioxidants, polyphenols, theobromine, which is like caffeine but without the jitters, healthy fat, low carbs, protein, magnesium, calcium, and the highest plant source concentration of iron known to man. Why aren't we consuming this stuff every day? Well, you can. Our partners at Cora Cacao offer ceremonial grade cacao, sustainably sourced, plant to paste from fair trade farms in the Mayan motherland of Guatemala. Cora Cacao is committed to delivering cacao products to you at reasonable prices in a way that makes the world a better place for all involved. Whether you're making morning cocoa lattes, iced cacao, hosting a meditation ceremony, or just doing alchemy in your mom's basement, Cora Cacao is committed to supplying you with the highest grade stuff for what you, your body, and your mind need. So head on over to coracacao.com. That's coracacao.com. Use promo code INTHEKEEP, one word, all caps, at checkout for 10% off your order. It's time to replace those bad habits with good ones, and using Cora Cacao for your energy and nutrient needs is a great place to start. I'm proud to call Cora Cacao a partner of In the Keep, and I hope that you will be proud to call them a new part of your daily routine. Much love. The nature of angelic wisdom can scarcely be comprehended because it is so greatly transcends human wisdom that the two cannot be compared, and whatever is thus transcendent does not seem to be anything. Moreover, some truths that must enter into a description of it are as yet unknown, and until these become known, they exist in the mind as shadows, and thus hide the thing as it is in itself. Nevertheless, these truths can be known, and when known, be comprehended, provided the mind takes any interest in them. For interest carries light with it because it is from love, and upon those who love the things pertaining to divine and heavenly wisdom, light shines forth from heaven and gives enlightenment. From Heaven and Hell by Emanuel Swedenborg.
Yeah, because I'm 26 right now, and I left when I was 24 and turned 25 in the monastery. So I was there for about a year, and it was kind of a long time coming. I was studying, I was just in college, just kind of like a normal human being at this point. And then I got severely depressed when I was in college, and that was just made worse by drinking and partying and kind of shallow social relationships. And then I spent all this time, all this money investing in a degree in psychology, and really I wanted to know how can I help myself get out of this depression. That was why I studied psychology, and of course, no help at all. no help. Like, of course, it'll give me a good understanding of like the parts of the brain, neurotransmitters, and how roughly the actual physical organ of the brain constructs reality in my personality. But it didn't help address the actual suffering. And so, I enter the corporate world. I don't decide immediately to pursue something entrepreneurial as soon as I get out of college. Um, and I'm like, I'm going to take the safe route. So I enter into this kind of consulting role, and
What
I
were
do
you
that for
doing
2 years.
in the corporate world? Like what was your job?
Yeah, so I started working. I would like through UCLA networked with this one alumni who happened to be the president of a humongous like $1 billion corporation, and so he basically helped me get my foot in the door, and it was a 2-year long rotational program. So I went through every department of the company in like the architecture industry, um I like got to do an apprenticeship and rotate through and work on every project that was like in the marketing department, in the sales department, in logistics. So I was like literally working in the warehouse for 3 months, let's say. And then I was also like taking sales calls, also doing like marketing stuff on their website. So it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, like a jack of all trades. And then I would do some consulting for the executive team based on what I found.
So I think so many people have like that similar kind of experience. I did a similar kind of thing. I went to go work for like this very large company
Uh-huh.
and did like moved around departments and got like a full okay, now I know how this whole business works kind of
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah.
And then was like, peace out. Like I can't. This does not make me happy.
And
Um
how long were you there for
oh, two
before you
years?
found that
Maybe
out?
I worked for the company for probably more like 2.5 years, but, like, I physically moved to Denmark to go work for a video game company when I was 27? Something like that?
So
So, yeah.
you went to Denmark immediately after the 2.5 years or so was up?
No, no, no. I moved to Denmark to work for a video game company called 3D Realms. So,
Oh,
I
gotcha. And
I had been you don't know, like, I haven't even started on this, and it's not about me. I'm just the experience of, like, going and doing the corporate thing and then touring around the whole country company and, like, "Okay, I see how this all works," and then just getting like, this isn't what I wanna do." Like, it's a good
mhm.
learning process, but, like, that doesn't I don't know how people, like, look at the corporate world and think, "This is gonna make me happy," because it
Yeah,
literally had the
yeah.
opposite effect on me.
Well, let me throw out there that, like, for some people, that lifestyle is a full body yes, but I'm glad that you were put into a situation where then you had to discern, like, if it's not this, then what is it, right? It gets you
Yeah.
one step closer to the yes, the
Yeah.
full body yes, you know?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And it put
So
you on the path that you're on now, I'm sure.
oh, for sure, yeah. And I'm glad I did everything that I've done. I wouldn't go back and change a thing. I'm just
Fuck yeah.
the experience of, like, especially if you're I don't know, a lot of people are in jobs that they fucking hate, and then they think you see the mountain, at the edge of the field, and you get all the way there, and you climb all the way up Mountain Doom, and then you're standing on top of the mountain, and you look around, and you're like, "Why am I here? I thought
Mhm.
this was the answer to all my problems," and it's like, it's not. Like, money doesn't fix anything. Like, just having lots of money just enables you to be more of a piece of shit if you're already a piece of shit. I
That's
found that
right,
out.
yeah.
You're like, "Oh, wow, now I don't even have to worry about how much money I spend on alcohol and drugs because I have alcohol and drugs money every day." So, as long
Mhm.
as that kinda thing, but, yeah, so you did that for a while, didn't make you
Yeah.
happy?
Yeah, there were parts of it that were, like, for sure enriching. Like, I learned a lot
Mhm.
about business, about people, about myself. But, yeah, ultimately, like, I felt dread every day when I woke up, and I could feel myself, like, falling away from the things that I cared about. So I did that for 2 years. And, like, what was really the icing on the cake is I worked in kind of like, their office was in an industrial district, so it's, like, multiple times a week, just next door, they were slaughtering, like, pigs for bacon. So it's, like, it's the most foul scent ever. that gets thrown into the air and goes into everyone else's lungs. And so it was like I would see the pigs in trucks on the way to work, right? I would drive by their plant. I'm like, dude, they're like, I can smell it. They're killing all these pigs for meat in there. And so that was like wild that anytime I wanted to go on a walk outside of the office that I would like be walking through this sludge. So I did that for as long as I could, and then I stopped sleeping. That's another really big thing that, like, forced me over the edge into going and doing some big thing, is that, they offered me a pretty substantial raise to stay on, and instead of being the rotational thing, like, stick in a one position, and I couldn't justify it any way that I looked at it because, like I said, I was falling away from all the things I cared about, and I was only able to stay asleep for 2 or 3 hours at a time and could never dip into deep rest. I had like a lot of inner kind of changes happening in my inner world, and so then I was like, "Fuck, I'm not gonna just be able to go hang out in the woods for a couple days. Like this is getting really bad. It's been a year since I've had like an 8 hour sleep." So, yeah, like I said, what I've been doing is just going to get Airbnbs in the woods. Like I went to Sequoia. I went like deep up in Northern California, like in the middle of nowhere. And I would go for a weekend or a week, but I needed something deeper, like a deeper nervous system reset. So that led me to going to a Zen monastery because their program is like, yeah, come stay for a month. It's only $800. Your room and board is taken care of, right? Like stay for as long as you want. And so really, like, it was perfect.
So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California, like a suburb of LA,
Yeah.
Riverside. I don't know. Are you in California?
Nah, I'm in South Carolina now, but I lived in Monterey for a year when I was like 20, 21 time frame.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
went
So
all over California. I mean, it's a great time to be in California when you're like 21.
yeah, yeah.
I was still in the military, so I was sent there to go to language school because like the Presidio of Monterey is like the best language school on earth, and they send you to Monterey. They could have that school anywhere, but they send you there because it's like the worst schooling you'll ever receive. So they want you to be in like a beautiful place so that you like have extracurricular activities. So I'd be every day as soon as I'm out of class, I'd be hiking, like in the mountains or down and like going to the ocean. Anything other than thinking about school. So it was pretty
Yeah.
cool experience. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with California.
Yeah.
So
Monterey
River
is beautiful, dude. It's
Oh yeah.
beautiful.
Carmel by the Sea is really, really beautiful.
Oh my God. Yeah. No joke.
Yeah.
Um,
Big Sur, all that stuff, yeah. Just like lots and lots of long weekends going up to Yosemite, going out like what anything other than sitting on a military base when I didn't have to be there.
dude. Yeah. I know it's a grind. You were living on base?
No, I lived off base on in like a small apartment because they give you quite a lot by everyone but California standards. They give you a lot of money for rent. So I was able to like get a 1-bedroom apartment off base. It wasn't that far though, so I could quickly get, to school if I needed to or drill or whatever we were gonna do. But yeah, most of the time I just tried to keep those two things separate.
Mhm.
And ideally that's how you get through it. I didn't even make it through the school. I failed out after like 8 months, I think. So
Damn.
yeah, it's intense, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like I said, there's a reason they keep it in beautiful Monterey.
Yeah, yeah, and you can kinda get away every weekend and be out by the sea or in the mountains and just, like, rejuvenate. Like, like, for me, I lived in LA for 6 years, and I was, like, locking myself into the city thinking, like, "Oh, yeah, that's enough." But then when I, like, started moving around, going to different places in California, I was like, "Oh, like,
Yeah.
the city's it's not for human beings, it's not for people." Like, I haven't been, like, touched a tree or touched the earth in, like, months,
Yes,
you know?
that's 100% how I feel about it. I grew up, like, in the country, so
Yeah, yeah.
I I don't feel comfortable, like, really in cities. Like, I go to them, I have business to tend to, go to shows, whatever, go to restaurants, but, like, it doesn't feel natural to me. But then I know like, I have friends that grew up in, say, New York or Los Angeles or Seattle or whatever, and they can't imagine not being in a city. So that's why I
Right.
asked, "Where did you grow up?" Because, like, I feel like it makes a difference. Like, whatever your natural environment is, I think plays a role a lot.
Yeah,
Um
yeah, and that's a good point that, like, even so I grew up in like the suburbs, right? Like where my family we didn't go outside very much. We didn't hike. We didn't go to any nature. And then when I was forced into the city for 6 years, and I just like got so fed up with it, I moved all the way across the nation to like upstate New York, where nothing is going on. There's just mountains and like four seasons. And dude, I love that style of living, like the small town in the middle of nowhere. Oh, dude, it was so rejuvenating.
And so you'd never had winter prior to moving?
No, dude, I'd only been in snow like a handful of times ever,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
No,
is
that's
kind of
it's
crazy.
it's really crazy. Like, how do you like, I know you had your corporate gig and all that shit, but, like, how do you afford to just get up and move like that? Like, go to New York for whatever?
Yeah, dude. I had some savings. Like
Okay.
tactically, I had enough to where I knew I could survive for a while. And um, where I was, and I should also say because I'm young, I had no responsibilities, none at all. I didn't have a family.
Yeah.
I was just like renting an apartment, right? So I could kind of like rely on my family to hold on to all my stuff while I just went wandering. Because I was like, I don't know. I didn't tell anyone this, but in my heart, I knew I could be gone for years. I could go to the other side of the world. Like I didn't know exactly what this was going to look like.
Mm.
And I told people, yeah, I'm going to like a mountain retreat for the summer. But I was like a full blown monk doing monastic discernment for a year. And so I had some savings, and basically when you commit to doing a long period of time in according to their rules, they'll just like they'll sponsor your ability to be there, but you become set. So you're kind of like hosting retreats, you're doing more work than just a visitor. You have more responsibilities. So that allowed me to live there for almost free. I just had to pay like my own insurance and then take care of myself like during the times that were not on the monastic schedule. So
Okay.
I could make it work, and then I made it work, like, I moved back to California, that's where I am now, um, after I was done there, and that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, you're a lot smarter than I was at that same age because, like, I needed someone to tell me where to go, what time to be there, like, don't because if you show up, like, I would just show up, like, hungover to everything if I didn't, like, have someone to hold me accountable, and I found that out after I got out of the military. I was like, "Oh, I'm free to do whatever I want now," and I was so not used to not having it's like bowling without the guardrails for the first time kinda thing, and I just,
Yeah,
like, went
dude.
crazy, and I was in Europe, and I had done, just everything that I could to just distance myself away from life, like, whatever I thought that was. I joined the military to get away from home, and then I went all across the fucking country, and then I ended up
Yeah.
across the world, all that, yeah. Um, just kind of, I don't know, trying to escape something, and I didn't know what the thing I was trying to escape was, if that makes sense.
Do you have more clarity as you've gotten older on what that thing was?
100%, yeah, I think everybody ideally, I mean, not to get all astrological, but, the return of Saturn kinda thing, like, sometime around 28, you wake up. I think you have, like, a perspective shift where it's like, I don't know if that's just time or if it's really, like, a mystical thing or whatever, but, yeah, I think I just got to a point where it's like, "Okay, this isn't working, like, what I'm doing is not solving my problem, so I need to
Yeah.
change the input," and some people don't make the decision to change the input, and that's where you get, the person who's, like, 45, had the same job their entire life, never took a risk, never changed anything, um, in my in my view of things.
Yeah, yeah. And you get, like, people who, are stuck chasing that high, like, the next thing constantly, and they haven't found like a stable place within themselves to just be like they're not at home in their own heart, and like that's deep down what we're all my perspective, and I think the perspective of a lot of the kind of great mystical traditions.
Right.
I think that they know that what we're after is the revolution of the heart. We're after like that inner transformation that allows us to be okay within ourselves. And that is going to inevitably include letting go of the things in our mind that cause us suffering. Like for me, I had to get sober. I wanted to escape all the time, and I like in college I was getting blacked out like 4 times a week
Oh yeah.
at
I
certain point, and like I had to. I had to, and I was really struggling around, especially around the time that I left for to go to a monastery. Like I was, dude, it was rough. Like especially not sleeping, that makes all of your other cognitive abilities like completely go out the window.
I ended up in the hospital from basically like I was so alcohol dependent that I could not sleep at all. Like I would have to wake up like every 30 minutes to just like taper, and it was really, really rough on me. So I went to go check myself in because like trying to taper yourself off of alcohol if you're a heavy drinker is I way underestimated the effect that it would have on you. So I was
Mm,
like hallucinating, like hearing things, like I heard the same song for 4 straight days that was not there, and I was like, "This is not good." Um,
yeah,
so it's rough, and anybody out there going through that, like, yeah, go like actually get help to do that. Don't try to do it by yourself. But
for sure. And how long did it take you to feel like you kind of got stable and recovered? And my experience is that it was a long process that's taken, like over. It's been like 2 years since I have touched anything, and like I'm still peeling back the layers. So what was that like for you?
well, I'll answer that by asking you another leading question if it's helpful. Were you a spiritual or religious person prior to joining the monastery?
Um, yes and no.
Okay.
And so when I was young, I was raised in an evangelical mega church with like the boy band in black, and I went to the kids' place, and my mom was in like the main room,
Mhm.
and the kids' place was like the kids all playing with each other, and I was super stoked on Jesus, and I got baptized, and I was like on fire. I wore all these shirts saying Jesus is our Lord to school, and I was like 9, 10 years old. And then when my mom left when I was 12 because of problems with alcohol and drugs. And when that happened, I kinda like I think I went back into my shell. And then also I went and lived with my dad. And my dad like saw how my mom used religion to justify all these like kind of just ridiculous behaviors. He's like, "Yo, I don't fuck with any of that." So,
Okay.
he didn't make my brothers and I go to church, so I kind of just, like, gradually unwound from the whole Christian narrative, and then at one point questioned, like, well, according to what I was taught, why would God, the Christian God, allow people to be born into like Muslim families or Hindu families and not know Jesus and then burn in eternity for hell? Like that just started to not make sense as I got a little older. And then I went like full blown atheist, like deep into a hole of nihilism and philosophy when I was 18, 19. And then when COVID hit, I was like, well, I'm going to be alone a lot. I gotta be good at sitting with myself. So then I started to just like take edibles and meditate. And then I stopped taking edibles and just meditating. And then I started looking into like Buddhist philosophy, and honestly didn't know that much about Buddhism until I went to a Zen monastery. And luckily by some like miracle I ended up there. So
Yeah, like,
I
what
had
were
like a
the
spiritual
things that
practice.
pointed you towards Buddhism? Like, why didn't you go to a Christian any other kind of thing? Like, you could have picked a million different routes, and you chose to go to a Buddhist monastery. Was it
Yeah.
just, like, random chance? Did you see some signs, talk to some people, read a book, anything? Like, what was it?
I think I trusted the Buddhist practice of like just sitting meditation. And
Okay.
in my view, like no other religion really like emphasizes like just sit and allow the thing to happen, whatever that thing is, this process of like whatever this deep realization is that the Buddha had, whatever the state is that Jesus had tapped into. And so I trusted that practice of just sitting, and I'd had some like pretty wild experiences of that. And I knew also um like when I was young, I had prophetic dreams. So I would see things that were to come true starting from a young age. Like, this is not my doing. It was happening on its own. And like the Christian church couldn't really hold that. And then as I got older, like that, when I was really in the kind of dark night of the soul phase, I started like leaving the body and like experiencing astral travel. Well, the Christians did not like that. Like, the Christian friends that I told, they were like, "That's demonic, you need to repent." And I'm like, "I'm not even doing anything." Like, I'm not choosing this. It's just kind of happening on its own. So that's
This
why I
was
turned
like the Santa Claus moment for me with Christianity. Was it, and I have no issue with Christianity in and of itself, but
yeah.
especially some of the evangelical churches that we have in the States. It happened in Europe also, but just further in the past. They don't really care about anything anymore. But
Mhm.
the idea that you have a problem with someone having these types of experiences when your entire religious belief is centered around several books of people who had exactly this type of experience, and that was their revelation of speaking with God. And anyone who does that, like it happened then, totally okay. If it happens now, it's the devil. It made no sense to me. I was like, this is literally insane. I cannot reconcile with this. I
Amen.
can't be part of this.
Amen, dude. And
Totally get
in my book, I break that down a little bit of like some of the crazy claims of the Bible. Like, there's a verse in Corinthians, and I'm not gonna be able to tell you the exact verse, but the person that's speaking is talking about another person that goes up to like the third heaven and hears words spoken by God that cannot be uttered by man.
You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. Please take a moment to tell at least one other person how much you enjoy the show. That's right. Grab that link and send it to that buddy you're thinking of who you know would be interested in what we're talking about right now. Maybe post it somewhere. I know it seems scary, but you can do it. I believe in you. Don't hesitate to leave a comment and a 5-star review, a like, wherever you're listening. And if you want, Patreon supporters for this show get episodes early, access to our secret Discord channel, chances to suggest questions to our guests, our games, and whatever else I can do for you. Every little bit helps. This podcast directly supports my ability to do what I love and take care of my growing family. The link is in the show notes. Thank you, bless you, stay in the keep.
And it's like they're talking about this exact thing that the Hindus, that the Buddhists have known for thousands of years, that we can leave our body, that like we're this giant blob of consciousness that is not just limited to our physical body. Like we can stretch beyond that because I mean, I don't want to get too into like the metaphysics and debating like philosophy, but it seems to be that consciousness is fundamental, based on these things that these like natural human abilities that we have.
Yeah. Uh, to get like back onto your life story to just summarize, I had it like when I wrote you back and I was like, I think we have a lot in common, like for real, that this is like hitting the nail on the head. Like I had the same sort of like Santa Claus isn't real moment with religion in general. And I was like a teenager
Mhm.
and I could never reconcile with that. So I was I don't like to use the word atheist because I don't think I ever just didn't believe in anything, but I definitely separated myself from any and all things like that were not empirically provable. Like I ended up
Yeah.
becoming, after I failed out of language school, was like a meteorologist in the military. I was like, I'm a science person. If you can't show it to me in numbers, like I don't care. And I was deeply, deeply unhappy until I reconciled with that. Like until
Mhm.
I turned the leaf of like, okay, this is pride and me thinking that I just like I'm so bold to say that I know that there's nothing or I feel that there's nothing just because I can't prove it with numbers or whatever is stupid. That's like the logic of a child. So once I made that leap, my life got very quickly a lot better. And that also helped me to be sober. Like that was like a huge part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um so you
Yeah, it's
you
like
go,
the scientific materialism, it's not working for everybody. Like it doesn't provide us like the direction and the meaning it feels like we as human beings deeply need because it rejects so much of the actual world. Like let's say, with our five senses, we're only perceiving such a small fraction of all of what's out there. and there's experiences that we can have, through psychedelics, through spiritual disciplines that don't make any sense and can't be explained by the Western paradigm. You have to look to the Eastern paradigm. Like when I read books on yogic philosophy, I was like, oh my God, they've created an entire system of like new terms that didn't exist before to describe these phenomena. And yes, it's like you can't like directly prove that this exact thing, you can't like physically measure a chakra. But if you have the vision, which many saints across time have had vision, like clairvoyance, you can see chakras, you can see auras, and then all of this stuff is no longer guessing. It then becomes a science of its own. That's why, like in all of the yogic sciences, or that's why they call it yogic science. You look at Yogananda, he talks about the science of Kriya Yoga. They talk about the science of Bhakti Yoga, you know?
These are using what we call materialist science is all based on inductive reasoning. Like observe this and predict that will remain constant based on trends that you're seeing. And in weather forecasting, that's exactly what we did, because you have no idea what's going to happen in the future except see what's happened in the past, see what you have now, predict the future, right?
Right, right.
Religion is deductive reasoning, where in which you don't have the source, you have things that you observe now, and you have to figure out what is the source of that. But it's still reason, it's still logic. We just don't think of it that way, mainly because our society has trained us not to think that way. Like, well,
Yeah.
you never know what happened back then or whatever. Like, even talking about things like climate change or whatever, that'll get me flagged on YouTube. Just saying that word, I'm sure. But like, okay, we didn't have weather observation balloons before 1908 or something. I don't know, whatever year that was. So therefore, we don't know anything that happened before that, right? And then you could start talking about core samples or whatever. But then you'll have people even in the scientific community arguing about whether or not you can reasonably make a prediction about like what was the weather in the past before you had a literal observation. It's almost like a quantum assumption that like if you don't observe it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
completely thrown out. But you can just do the same set of logic backwards and arrive at like, okay, one day before it was 32 degrees Celsius in Death Valley, it was probably 32 degrees Celsius. Pretty, it's not that hard. Religion just attempts to do this at a much larger scale. That's what it's like I feel like the world is kind of waking up to the fact that we've lost this ability to think rationally in reverse.
And
Yeah.
like kind of a non-linear way. Like I don't know how to explain it. I know what it feels like to think in a non-linear way, to where instead of like, I think maybe it's the difference between like the masculine principle of doing versus the feminine principle of just receiving. Like, because I feel like that's a big part of like the mystical experience or the feeling the presence of God directly, is that you're in a receptive state and you're not in this so active being the doer, right? Because when
Yeah.
you're using intellect, you're really pressing ahead and using logic and trying to drive things. But someone that's kind of just walking this path and trusting God is just waiting for signs from God. I'm reading Matthew in the Bible right now as a way to kind of come back to my Christian roots. And Jesus is preparing his disciples to go out and perform miracles in his name, because Jesus is casting out demons, and the response from the people at the time, which is the same response that would happen now, is if he's casting out demons, he must be king of the demons. So he's like, fuck you guys. I'm going to go and teach my disciples to do healing and then claim it in the name of God, right? So he's preparing his disciples. He's saying, don't worry if you don't have like food or money or a house. When you need those things, they will be provided by the Father. Even if you're in court being persecuted by a king, you don't even need to worry about what words you will use, because it is just the Father who speaks through you. It is not you speaking ultimately. And that like points to this deep kind of like non-doership that requires a receptivity, not a passivity, but a receptivity to something beyond what our five senses are tuned.
Have you seen the Chosen TV series?
No, I've been meaning to watch that.
So this scene in that show is very well done, and they're all sitting around at the table, and like it's Jesus and so Peter and James are kind of having this like big to do about this thing because they're like, wait, you're just gonna send us out there? Like we don't perform miracles. That's you, man. Like that's your thing. Like what are we gonna do? And they're all like amongst themselves discussing like, is he crazy? Like and he's just like, okay, how come you can have faith in me every day as long as I'm here to do everything for you, but you can't like just trust me when I say I I got you on this, right?
Right, right.
But that is an echo of the same principle from Moses when the Hebrews are crossing. They've just escaped from Egypt, and Moses is sitting on the throne every day, all day long, listening to all these Jews kvetching at him about all their problems. And then Jethro kind of takes him aside, and depending on how deep you want to go with some of this stuff, like Jethro was like the one who initiated Moses, so to speak. But he's like, "Listen, man, there ain't no reason why you should be solving all these problems. There's too many problems for one person. You need to learn the art of delegation." And then fast forward to the New Testament, Jesus is like doing the same thing with the apostles.
Delegating. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy shit. But
Dude, yeah, and like that's kind of what we're all called to learn how to do. Like, because if you need, um, I'll just refer to Jesus as like the master or the teacher, and it could be anyone in any tradition, and not even just in the religious domain, but like even in your professional life, if you have to have your mentor, your teacher, the master holding your hand, then you're not actually like that effective. Like, we need to learn to be able to act independently and recognizing that it's like we do have this faith in something else. We have faith in the mentor that taught us how to do this job. We have faith that God will provide a house when it's needed and words when they're needed. Or money will fall into your lap if money is needed at the time for this purpose, assuming it's given in, in the name of God or to all, whatever, however you want to say that. But
right.
yeah, that's really cool that that's totally. I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about um, that kind of thing. Like, he talks about that issues need to be solved at the lowest possible local level, and then if they can't be solved at that level, then take it to a higher level, then a higher level, then a higher level.
Yeah,
So that's
that principle has been passed on by basically Freemasons from
wow.
at least the
Yeah.
time of the Knights Templar to now. And our military is based on Napoleon's French military. And that's still in the law. It's like in the UCMJ. All problems must be solved at the lowest possible level before you raise them to the next level. Because no colonel should be having to have a discussion with like two soldiers who got in a fucking fist fight, or whatever on the flight line or
Yes.
some shit like that. Like that's not his problem. This their immediate supervisor can solve this problem, and if he can't solve it, then the next person in line can solve it, and that way the person at the top doesn't have to deal with every individual thing because it's impossible. No one can do that. Not even Moses can do that. So,
Hmm.
and not Jesus probably, I mean, depending on what you believe, probably could handle it, but it's like it's like if you're a parent, I'm not gonna raise my kid to think I'm just gonna do everything for him. He's gonna do his own fucking homework. Think
Hmm.
for yourself. It's
Hmm.
you'll be better off. You'll thank me later. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's the whole biblical story is you'll thank me later if you'll just stop waiting for a handout. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. 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 And there's a kind of um like I witnessed a kind of exactly what you're saying of the even like someone doing your homework for you with my younger brother. Like, I love my younger brother, but the reality is that when he was young and would complain about doing homework, instead of being forced to do it, my mom would do it for him, would tell him like what the answers were, and then he never learned, and then it was a very clear snowball effect, and he never finished high school, because he didn't have the foundation starting when he was very young of how to do basic math, basic English reading and writing, because he could protest longer than the parent had patience for, and in that there's no freedom now. Now he's, having a hard time getting on his own feet. And when you learn to kind of be disciplined, even though it seems like it's this outside thing that is preventing the free flow of the natural development of that person, there's still some freedom to be found because we need the guardrails in certain circumstances to actually like tell us where it is that is best to try and go. Like I don't, it's,
Yep.
yeah,
But like that principle of just delegating down to the lowest level goes from Moses and Jethro to King Solomon to the Knights Templar to Rome and Europe, all the way into Anderson's Constitution in 1723, and it was written into our Constitution almost word for word from
Wow.
Anderson's Constitution.
wow.
So,
It's amazing how that was all passed down so directly in that way.
and it's, I mean, that is, regardless of what you think the source of it is, like, we consider that to be sacred knowledge. Right?
Mhm.
Just these like core principles of how to properly structure a society or whatever so that it doesn't collapse under its own weight. The old Tower of Babylon kind of principle, like when everybody's like overreaching. Some people even define evil as simply overreaching. I think as American Christians, we get fed this idea that like sin and fire and hell, brimstone, like go hand in hand and all this kind of thing. But like if you can read Greek, go back to the book of John, and the word is hamartia, meaning like to miss the mark. Sin
Right.
is just simply not doing the exact correct bullseye thing to do. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a evil person. It just means that you're like not getting the point, and you need to keep working on getting to the point. That's why I like meditation so much, because it's like when I first learned how to meditate, they start you off with like breath, focus on your breath or whatever, and it's like the point is not to focus on your breath. The point is to notice when you're not focusing on the thing that you intend to be focusing on. We say
Mhm.
mindfulness and all this stuff now, but like just having control of your mind, being in control
Mhm.
of your emotions and your mind and your body. Like if you can get those three things on lock, you have superpowers. Like other people will start treating you like you're a fucking genius. Like I'm not. I just have discipline. I'm not missing the mark right now in this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about the actual translation of sin is that Buddhism has a very similar concept too.
Yep.
It's called like the noble eightfold path. They say you start with right view, having a right view of how the world actually works, not through your perception, your limited filters, your senses, of how the world actually works, and then you have right speech that is predicated on that there is a wrong speech. There is a way to miss the mark of goodness, of being in accord with the way that the world actually works, is in which not to speak on behalf of Buddhism here, but it's based in this idea that there is no true self. That's one of the things that the Buddha taught is this doctrine of anatta or no self, that the self actually exists. um, it's just a label that we give a bunch of constituent parts. And so when you start seeing into those layers that, oh, I'm not as simple as just being who I think I am. I'm actually made up of my senses and of my thoughts and of my conditioning, and there's all these layers. Then you start to there's more of a oneness, an interconnectedness that pervades your life, and then you start to act in accord with that reality that is more interconnected. And that's, I think, like the idea of right action, right speech is like, is my speech, are my actions, is my livelihood based in this true version of reality that what I do is going to inevitably affect you because we're an interconnected system. Um,
So I think this is a theosophist belief, which probably has some influence from Buddhism and Hinduism. But you mentioned earlier, like seeing the astral plane in your dreams and that sort of thing. So I took a
mhm.
90-minute class on astral travel last night, so I'm an expert now. But
Perfect timing. Perfect
yeah,
timing.
hey, that's how the universe works. But tell me about what your experience was, and then I'm gonna have this this theosophical chart over to my right just to compare notes.
First of all, I love that you're bringing up theosophy right now, 'cause I'm in Ojai.
Mhm.
That's where I live now, and that's where the esoteric school of the Theosophical Society is, and that's actually what brought me to live in Ojai. It was a crazy series of events that made I literally lived at the Theosophical Center here, Crotona, for 2 months.
Yeah.
Because it opened in such a unique, weird way, which I can get into in a little bit, but
Yeah, we'll do that for sure.
yeah.
That's
So
why I book these things long. I've had so many people write me back like, "Are you serious? 3 hours?" I'm like, "It takes a while to have a conversation, and actually do it justice."
yeah, for sure. Um, okay, so my experience with astral travel, um, it started just on its own. So um, naturally, as the way I was just talking about it, the way I understand it, and not through any particular lens, but as you do more meditation, and like I said, consciousness is not localized to our physical body. If consciousness is fundamental, which you see in the remote viewing projects, in the CIA Gateway project, and the people can sort of move their conscious awareness to different coordinates, right? It's as well documented that they can give a remote viewer coordinates and they can see what's going on there at that time, and then in really other times in the past too. Um, and that's through this moving of consciousness to a particular place. So as consciousness kind of unfolds beyond the boundary of the body, weird shit can start to happen. So for me, it actually started from a lucid dream. So I was just sitting. I was actually just looking at this beautiful view, and then I started to meditate naturally. And then once I closed my eyes, I opened my eyes, hovering over my own sleeping form. I was like, "Holy shit, I'm out of my body right now." So I stood up and tried looking to see what my form looked like, and I was kind of translucent, but I could kind of see the outline. And then I got so excited that it ended. So then this kind of thing continued to happen where I would wake up in sleep paralysis with my body feeling like it was being electrocuted. And then there was also usually a kind of jet engine roaring going on in the ears. And then I was normally able to roll out of my body, or I would sink into the bed and kind of get out. And then I would walk around, I would fly, I would meditate in my living room. I would do different things. And I've had a couple dozen episodes of this exact thing, and it was happening on its own for a while, where I was not in control of it. But this is part of what caused my sleep to get so fucked up while I was in the corporate world. Is I would go out and I would just wake up in the middle of the night in this sleep paralysis, float out of my body, sit and meditate in my living room, levitating off the floor, because in the Astral you can fly and phase through walls and do all kinds of stuff. And I would be sitting there meditating, and then my alarm would go off and I would need to go to work. So it kind of started to mess up my natural rhythms. And then over time, I developed the ability to kind of control that process. It didn't stay for long. Now I don't really it doesn't happen that often where I'm leaving my body. It's almost like that door has kind of closed temporarily. Um, and was just meant the way I interpret it is it was meant to show me where to go. It was meant to kind of cause particular changes in my consciousness so I would know how to navigate in the future. And then it was revoked when it was no longer needed because it was just happening of its own accord. That's the way I see it. It comes when it wants to come, it goes when it wants to go. So I would be in my living room meditating and then go to work. And then when I developed the ability to control it, it would take me maybe 30 seconds of lying on my bed in meditation to then have the electricity start to happen. And my understanding is that electricity is always there. We're just not always tuned into it. We always have this natural vitality of chi or prana, life force. Everyone has a different name for it. But we always have this subtle energy body that's tingling all the time. But when you kind of allow this in between state to happen, you start to feel that, then that's the green flag to kind of jump out of body. So then I started testing it and trying to go visit people and I was able to see with some accuracy what people were doing at that time that I went to go visit them. Um, so it sort of like became a little bit of remote viewing.
Were you able to
Um,
corroborate that with other people?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
hey,
I
what were
was.
you doing last night at 10:45?
Yeah, like little things like I bet you were hanging out with this person watching a movie and like around, you know, 1 in the morning. They're like, holy shit, how did you know I was with them?
So your
Or
friends who already thought you were demonically possessed, this pretty
I made
pretty
sure to
fucking
talk
pathetic.
about yeah, I made sure to talk about this with friends who like kind of knew what was going on, you know? Um, yeah, friends that wouldn't judge and get like have an adverse reaction. Um, but yeah, like I ultimately was in that was not supported by everyone in my life. Like I didn't tell everyone, but the people I did tell, the reactions were not always um like people weren't always excited. Like even though you would think that people would be like, no, I want to know what's true. Like you're having this weird experience that is well documented in the East. Like people know about this stuff in like India, in places where Buddhism is very prevalent. And people were not usually that interested. They weren't like asking scenarios, like, oh well, what are you doing? What's going on? How does it feel? Are you okay? Like you're kind of, maybe you're dissolving, which I did feel like at certain points I was dissolving. Where I would like be out of body and I would be flying around the city. And then like there was one particular time where my alarm to go to work went off while I was like really far out of body, and I felt this really uncomfortable snap back in that wasn't so wasn't as crisp as I'm used to. And that fucked me up. Like for the rest of the day, I remember driving on the 101 like to go to my job in LA, and I was like completely dissociated because the question that was on my mind is like, well, how would I know if I made it back? Like what actually is me? And you can't look at your memories to corroborate whether or not you're you in your body, because your memories would just be stored in your mind as like ones and zeros, and you can't, like, your reasoning ability, same thing. Your hopes, your dreams, your goals, your fears, all of that stuff is just programmed in the brain. So what are you?
Were
What
you
can you use? Just
familiar
really,
with the concept of astral travel, projection, remote viewing prior to stumbling into this?
I was. Yeah,
How
I'd like
like
seen videos on YouTube of people talking about their experience. There's a guy like Ryan Cropper that I remember watching from when I was young, and then I read the book after I started astral traveling. Read the book Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. I was like, holy shit, that's exactly what I'm experiencing.
that's a damn good book. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very helpful and
Yeah.
kind of like
Now
telling me.
everybody's on the My Big Toe thing because of him.
Say again.
Like I forget his name, but there's a book that recently came to public fruition called My Big Toe, toe standing for Theory of Everything. I'll throw it into the show notes of this too, but he was like mentored by the Journeys Out of the Body guy.
Wow.
Yeah, and was a physicist and is like working to try to sum all this up into something that's
Yeah, yeah.
pretty
We
cool.
need more people who are like scientifically oriented, but also have this kind of mystical angle of like, dude, psychic abilities are a completely normal part of being a human, and they always have been and always will be, unless, of course, like I think we keep going the way that we're going with this,
Yeah.
like trying to leave our physical form to be in a more technological form. I think like they've always been there. We need people who are scientifically minded and also have the mystical angle and can help to bridge the two worlds, because like there's such a rich series of discoveries that could come from like exploring this frontier that's been unexplored just because it's not easily studied.
It it's like a balance thing where you need intuition and you need logic, and you can't just
Mhm.
do one or the other. Like if you're just going off strict intuition all the time, you're just going to end up chasing red herrings for the most
Mhm.
part. You'll go insane.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you're just on only logic, which I can testify to, then you lose sight of what the bigger picture is because you're so focused on details. And
yeah.
yeah, I think that for sure. Like, look at the great scientists who made, or the great spiritualists, all of them who made like real progress were both. Like Isaac Newton was a devout Christian, and probably in a lot of other things that, don't get documented so well today. And all of the great philosophers of, what we now call metaphysics and even in ancient Greece and in Kabbalah were geometrists, they're mathematicians. They were like not people who were just sitting around twiddling their thumbs and thinking up crazy stories. Like they were applying reason and logic to everything that they approached.
Yeah, they were like receiving these kind of downloads and then doing something with it. They were trying to like build up a system, and that's funny you mentioned that because the Crotona Institute named itself after Pythagoras' living community.
Yeah.
That's where they got the name Crotona from because of the influence of like the mathematicians. It's so cool. It's
I
so
can't
cool.
prove this, but I was told that Albert Einstein kept a copy of Isis Unveiled on his desk at all times. So maybe
I
that was some. Yeah.
I believe it. I know. I think that was he the one that said that he did a lot of lucid dreaming. Like he was really tuned in. But I think he did a lot of yeah. I mean, you can't have the revelations that he had and not just have this deep like ability to like drop deep into consciousness and get out of the intellectual mind completely and be like, well, how does the world feel like it moves? Like, and he was like really feeling the world around him like a bird feels the magnetic field around it in order to know how to navigate it.
Well, the entire principle of like geometry beyond 3 dimensions is kind of something that you need to do a lot of additional thinking about. Like, this was known and accepted amongst many, many different spiritual schools for a long time. But Newton comes along and basically brings into the popular zeitgeist the 4th dimension of physics, being like space and time both exist on an axis and things move in curves. Guys, we figured this out. Like, and before that, people were just like, time is just this big mystery. And it's still a mystery. In fact, he doesn't really give us an answer. He just gives us like an equation that allows you to further test what can I plug into this and use it as an axis to like build things upon. So E equals MC squared doesn't really solve anything. It just introduces a new question. Like, what if space and time are relative to each other?
Mhm.
What if they both intersect and move on a curve? So you have like, 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, and all of that's moving in what we would call the 4th dimension. And then going all the way back to like Kabbalic Sephirot, and actually you have to kind of get into some of the Hindu stuff as well to further explain it. But starting with zero doesn't mean nothing. Zero means undefined everything. Like it's
Mm.
imagine you're looking at like a Cartesian plane, and it's just zero is just not deciding on a point. Then you have a point. So it's number 1. Number 2 is basically still nothing because you just have a line in undefined space. Then you have a 3-dimensional object. Well, actually, no, you still have a 2-dimensional object. So 3 is still 0. Like you haven't gotten anywhere yet. When you introduce 4, now you have 3 dimensions. 5 is moving through time. Then you have self-awareness, and then you have to start building on it with other more esoteric principles. But like that's the basis of how people came up with numbers. Like math came out of these ideas of like, how do we explain what we're seeing? It wasn't just like counting sheep.
Yeah, it wasn't dreaming stuff up. It was like the perception of
Yeah.
something real, but like you could only see through a hole in the wall, right? And try and like guess what's behind it. You couldn't actually like
Plato's
always
cave.
The what?
Is it Plato's cave? Like
Yeah,
everything that we see is just the light shining in through the top of the cave that you've never seen outside of or whatever. And if
and
you poke your head out there, it's terrifying.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Where there's like real sun and real light as opposed to just like shadows on the wall, which yeah, that's exactly right. I think like, dude, time is such a weird concept. Like having had these like prophetic dreams, like I mentioned when I was a kid, I don't, I don't use the term prophetic dreams thinking of myself as a prophet or anything. I just use that in a very literal sense that like that's what seeing into the future in any way would be called. And that's documented, I think, as far even into the Old Testament, that there were seers. And so I knew from a young age, time is not what we think it is. Like, there are some things that we can perceive. Like, Buddhism talks about it in the sense of, they call it streams of causation. So you can, like, I don't know how deep I want to go into this, but there's people who are clairvoyant, for example, that can perceive someone's energetic field and kind of know approximately when they're going to die. They know like where they've been. They can see their past because it's encoded in the energy. So when you learn to like read and see someone's energy, you can perceive these things. So I knew from a young age, like, time did not work the way that we think. Like, if I'm able to see the future and have these things come true, and I can document these things very clearly of like, okay, I had a dream about this. Within 24 hours, something very closely related to it happens at a time where you're supposed to be completely blacked out. Like, how is that possible? And then, like, going into a monastery, I had many experiences in meditation where a period of 35 minutes of sitting would feel like maybe 40 seconds because I was able to drop into that place where there is no time, and I would be like, holy shit, like, the gong is going off to stop meditation and do walking meditation. And I just sat down, but it's been 35 minutes.
So let's get back to the journeys out of the body, because I feel like we went on a wide tangent from there, which is
Mhm.
totally okay. But so you read this book, and like, what did you like? Did you start like trying to apply principles based on what it said, or how did you get to that?
Yeah, so I think, like, I found out about astral travel on YouTube first, and then once I started kind of, like, popping out of my body, then I was looking for more resources, and then I found Robert Monroe's book, Journeys Out of the Body, and then I started reading that, and I kind of, I recognized that this was just happening on its own for a little bit before. um, I think it would, for me, reading Journeys Out of the Body was more of just, like, an anthropological thing of recognizing, or like seeing what other people have explored in the non-physical realm, as opposed to trying any techniques. Because to my knowledge, he doesn't really go into like, well, no, he does go into techniques. Now that I say that, I remember he does mention how to do it there. But for me, it was happening of its own accord, and then I just kind of learned how to get a handle over it.
It's really interesting. We were just talking about like dimensions and time, and what's interesting about time is that it's only just the next thing beyond our immediate perception, and then there's very likely much more than that. And people have believed this for so long, and then now like scientists are saying it, and it's like, oh, see, scientists have proved it was true for the first time ever. And like, they're not the first people to arrive at this conclusion, right?
Hmm.
Um, we were talking about theosophy and astral travel, and in like Ledbetter in the astral plane talks about kind of like the 7 tiers. Everything's got to be 7 in theosophy. I don't think it needs to be 7. It could be 12. It could be 10. They're all sacred numbers.
Buddhism, yeah, does say the same thing. They talk about the 7 levels of consciousness all the way down to the bottom being the alaya, or like the storehouse of consciousness. So that is, there are many models of looking at it, but yeah.
But the idea of like there's the physical, and then the next tier up, counting from 7 down, is astral, and then you have 5 more tiers after that, right? So you're like an initiate of the 6th degree, basically. Like that's where you're at right now, which is interesting. It's like super, super cool. You don't have to use the word prophet. From now on, just call yourself, I'm an initiate. Like, it sounds way weirder. I don't know. But there's still like the mental, the buddhi, atma or nirvana in Buddhism, anapadaka, and then adi
Like
way on
logoic.
up there. Yeah, there's different names in different cultures, but like the principle of like there's still more to go after the astral plane. That's just like step 1 of getting out of this reality.
Hmm.
It's so wild. Um, so we talked to some people would describe like Jesus or Buddha as initiates of the third degree, which is why Atma is nirvana, right? Like people who have
Yeah.
reached that level and then tried to impart 5 dimensions up down to us what's really going on here through words that we could, hopefully, like the song The Cult of Personality, like speak right down to earth in a language that everyone here can easily understand is like the opening line to the song. I think that's Malcolm X, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But that's so wild to just think about. Like, still, your journey is so much to go, even if you've reached that point. Like, okay, now you figured out time. What's after that? In the astral plane, did you run into any spooks or, goblins, vampires, werewolves? Because there's a lot. I don't necessarily like this terminology, but that's what Ledbetter describes in his book.
Yeah, there are a lot of tricksters. So I want to comment on the first part, and then I'll go into this.
Yeah, of course.
When I was talking with teachers about experiences and trying to like kind of understand what was going on with me, they kept saying like, don't get distracted by this is fireworks. Keep going, because like you're saying, there is so much more to go. And the way that manifests is less obvious than astral travel. It's far more subtle because it's more refined energies that we're perceiving through this like antenna system that we have. They're very, very subtle and refined, versus like the material would be very dense and gross. These like very, very subtle energies that we're referring to, like they'll tell you all kinds of things if you can learn how to be still enough to listen. Like, if I can give you an example that's very fresh, like my mom passed away last week, and 3 months
Sorry to hear
ago,
that. God.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
3 months ago, I kept having this recurring intuition, and I kept thinking about like my mom and grandma dying, because my mom lived with her mom, my grandma, and I kept having this recurring thought about death for months and months and months. And then back in February of this year, I wrote down in my notes just to document and like get it out of my mind. I wrote, "Death is near." I don't know what that means, but death is near. And within 90 days, my mom passed. And so like I know it sounds crazy, it sounds like a coincidence, but like we're able to as you keep going on this path, you start to perceive very, very, very subtle. You start to receive very subtle impressions from the future. I don't know, from beings beyond. I don't know, from angels, right? I mean, like there's angels that appear in all these religions. And so then to answer your question, yes, I did encounter beings, and there was one particular being who, like, when I I didn't know, but when I did research on this like experience, I think that it was maybe a succubus type being. I jump out of my window and I like, instead of fly, I sink, and I end up on the street of LA where there's like crackheads. I should also mention this. Right outside of my window, there's people doing hard drugs in an alley. Right. I like, when I would walk to the gas station, or when I would drive on my way to work, I would drive past, like there would be needles on the street. So instead of, when I jump out my window flying, I get pulled down. And when I get pulled down, I come across, like, I'm just kind of confronted with this entity. And we communicated telepathically. Like, it was just not telepathically, just it was like we were registering each other's intentions and energies. And it was automatic. It wasn't like I was trying really hard to send a signal. It's just like what I am is visible to them. What they are at least
Yeah.
presenting is visible to me.
I'll show you yours. You show me your, like, I'll show you mine. Yeah, I get it. I understand.
Yeah. We don't need words in the astral.
Yeah.
So this
The old
entity,
salute, like, I'm unarmed. Like, you're listening to KEEP in the Keep. If you love this show and you love supporting indie video games, please take a moment to check out In the Keep's upcoming Stellar Valkyrie. Built in the GZDoom engine, This retro first-person shooter puts you in the universe of space bird bounty hunter Falco, who is on a mission to save his ex-girlfriend from the evil Black Star cult. Just type birdgame.space, that's BIRD game.space into your browser. Hit enter, smash the wishlist button, and stay tuned.
Yeah.
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 So this entity has access to like all of my exes starting from when I was young and everybody I've ever found attractive, and flips through this giant catalog of beings. And then like when I in my energy say that's the one, then it stops and we like start to have sex. And I didn't encounter, I know other people have encountered like gods. I've heard Ryan Cropper, he talks about encountering Osiris. And there's people who encounter all kinds of other beings, like Bob Monroe. He goes to different planets and encounters like different timelines of humans, and is pulled into their body, right, and has their memories and lives as them. I've had dreams of those kinds of things happening, but never while I'm out in the astral. So that's kind of the only interaction I've had with a non-physical being.
Man, I hate to like give advice. I don't want to be that guy, but
Please.
in the astral plane, if you believe in it, and some of the people listening to this are gonna be like, Ty is finally cracked. He's crazy. He's lost it. But
Yeah, naturally.
it's the Wild West. Like there's all kinds of shit there. From you said succubus, vampire, shades, astral shells, things that have been left behind by people who have ascended,
Right, like
and
disembodied.
things that refuse to go up. Also, like the black magician, right? Like is the concept that Satan is the lord of the earth is because he refuses to ascend towards God.
Wow, yes.
Descended from the Anapadaka down to what we would call the physical and astral planes, and does not wish to be associated with this, right?
Right.
Just speaking in strictly like spiritual metaphor for the sake of doing so. Okay. If you are adept at navigating this area, you ideally would be able to control it, right? So you've learned how to, hover, fly, remote view, project, all great things. I would suggest when you get there, build something that's your safe space. Like imagine yourself like do however you want. I like the lodge from Twin Peaks. I like to imagine like room with red curtains and a checkerboard floor. Like it looks like a Mason's lodge actually, and nice big comfy chair. No one else is in there, and then just like however you want to do it. Doors. I like an elevator. I was taught this, by the way. So I'm not coming up with this on my own, but I like an elevator, and you have like a button or something that you can hit, and you can decide who comes in and who comes out of your room. And if you construct the elevator such that you could see the person before you allow them into the room, and you could just send them away if you don't like them or whatever, and then you can have that how do you do moment, and you can, play the lottery with who you let into your space. And if you're seeking something higher, something, if you want to talk to someone who's not a demon or whatever, however you want to call that, send them straight down and next person into the room until you find people that you actually want to associate with or things that you want to associate yourself with. And even if you don't believe in any of the mystical side of this, like just as a strictly like Jungian psychological exercise, this is a way of personifying your thoughts. So I'm making it available to all comers in that case, just like as an exercise. But then build a table in the room and have a council of people who you trust to converse with. And then maybe that's just you in your own mind again. Maybe you're sitting there with fucking Abraham Lincoln and I don't know, King David or whoever you admire. I don't know. And if you get a Hitler in the room, just send him down the elevator. Like you can't stay here. You're not welcome.
Mhm.
And then you have control of the situation instead of just drifting in the astral plane.
Yeah, because that is for sure immediately what happened, and then you're kind of at the mercy of whatever beings
Mm.
are around. No, I really appreciate that advice. I feel like it's so helpful, and I love that you mentioned that, like, oh, I was taught this. This is not something I'm making up. You're recognizing that you're a student in this as well, and like it's cool that we get to learn from each other in that way.
Yeah,
I
of
just
course.
love that, man. This is so rare, and what you're talking about um, you give the disclaimer of like you could even see it as Jungian archetypes. One, I would encourage anyone that's skeptical of these things, like, dude, read the Bible. You'll find crazy ass quotes of like Jesus's clairvoyance, his ability to heal. You'll find documented out of body travel experiences in the Bible, and like that's only one of the holy books. There's thousands of years of like Vedic scriptures and Buddhism, right? Goes
Yeah.
right back to the Buddha, who had the same documented kind of abilities as Jesus, right? Like he broke through the ego, and there's so many rich lineages all around the world of these things being well documented, and in the West we're not exposed to them, which is why we're skeptical. They're outside of our paradigm of understanding the world. And what did I wanted to comment also on something that you mentioned about the council. Oh, the Jungian archetypes, personifying thoughts. I think that's so cool because the mind can absolutely construct an entire functioning persona based on like a virtue. If you're like, I need someone wise, your brain will pull like every memory up of like someone wise and construct that archetypal image, and then you can have an exchange with it. And you're exactly right. Jung talked about this during
Yes.
his work, his life. That's so cool. I love that.
I mean, Freud did too. He just, instead of giving them names of deities, he called them id ego, superego, or you could call that the maiden, the mother, the crone. You could call that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, or the Father and the Mother and the Child, or the triple manifestation of the Logos, or whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't matter. Like
Yeah,
these
but
different
they're
cultures have
pointing
come
to
up with different
something.
names. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pointing to something very deep, and like everyone has a version. So there must be some underlying reality that they're pointing to, you know?
Yes. And the plane after astral is the mental plane.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't
Yeah.
make this up. This is not me. Like it's
Right,
all
yeah.
just being passed down from generation to generation. I mean, but I kind of wanted to get more into the specifics of like your Buddhist experience. I recently, because I went to a Buddhist temple one time. I was 20 years old. I was in basic training, and they had like I forget the exact name of this sect, but they do the chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo thing, and I thought it was a bunch of bullshit. So I was like, this isn't for me. Um, then
It can be.
like, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, recently, I went to a Zen monastery and did like you know, this is how you meditate, all that kind of stuff. And like now I kind of have like a pen pal relationship with this guy, Master Rokuzan, who's like the head of that monastery and all that stuff. And he like even just like the little short conversations we've had, like made me think like, all right, I need to rethink this whole thing.
Mhm,
Because I think that you're on to something here. I just haven't been open minded to it. So, but like
mhm.
your specific experience with Buddhism, I'm interested in.
Yeah, so where do I even start? I think going there and getting exposed to the context as opposed to just having like the Western mindfulness movement that separates, it kind of creates a secular Buddhism of just meditate, right? Well, it'll reduce your stress, it'll reduce your depression and anxiety without telling you what it actually does. Like
Right.
if you're using meditation to reduce stress, that's like taking benzos for a paper cut, right?
Mhm.
Or like removing the whole limb that's been cut. And so, like, I think it was very helpful to understand the context in which this whole system was developed, right? So, there's three prongs of I would say like especially Zen, but maybe you could apply it to Mahayana Buddhism as a whole. There's Shila, which means moral teachings. There's
Mm.
Samadhi, which refers to concentration, and Prajna, which refers to wisdom. So we sit in meditation, we develop some concentration, we still the mind. Then that's like just developing a very sharp instrument by which you can like use to generate insight. You can cut and see deep into the nature of reality. And when you start having deep insights, you need to know how to hold it. So that's why they have these guardrails that are the moral teachings to be like, you know, because you could easily use insight to deceive people, to take things from people, to subjugate people. So you have very specific moral teachings of like, don't lie, don't kill, don't cheat, don't steal, don't cloud the mind with intoxicants. Like there's very specific reasons for all these things. And like before I went, I just thought that that was all like religious dogma. And going there and being steeped in this tradition, you start after doing like chanting, after doing bowing like 100 times, then it starts to make sense of why we're doing it. We're not doing it just because someone told us, but because it's actually skillful for producing a particular state of consciousness. So, like when you're bowing, and I like to think of it in terms of the 4 yogic paths of like there's devotion, there's contemplation, there's meditation, and then there's like physical postures, or I think they call it karma yoga.
Mhm.
So when you're doing bowing, like you're getting on your hands and knees, and what it looks like from the outside is you're bowing to this idol of the Buddha. You're not necessarily worshiping the Buddha. What I've had explained to me by the abbot of the monastery was you are kind of performing a devotional service to your own enlightenment. You're like you're making that real, your desire for enlightenment in your own experience, and you're bowing down to this thing that is so large. And you're also it's an action of respect to the historical Buddha that provided that like sacrificed his life to provide teachings that can liberate people. Like he provided teachings that liberate the mind. Go ahead.
What's directly behind the statue of Buddha in the monastery? Like directly behind him.
He was usually in a box.
Okay. In the temple I went to, I don't know if this
Yeah.
is normal because I've only been to one. Directly behind Buddha is the family tree of every master from Buddha down to the master of the monastery. So it's like your reverence is not to reverence is actually a good word for it. You're not worshiping, like you said, a false idol or something like that, which I think a lot of Christians would have a huge issue with. Is like, oh, you're worshiping a graven image or whatever. It's like the word worship is kind of stupid anyway, because it just means it comes from an old Anglo, either a Saxon or Anglo word, just basically meaning to pay attention to something. So like
Yeah.
that gets really language gets really cloudy when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I like your description of it. It was you're just acknowledging like this guy is the dude with the key to the thing that I'm actually worshiping. It's a conduit up the ladder.
Yeah.
What I'm actually getting to, which hopefully whatever you want to call that thing up there, but it's there.
Yeah, and that's really cool that they had the whole lineage laid out, and that's something that's so important about studying with a teacher is in a lineage, and the lineage that I trained in, they go directly back to the historical Buddha. So the Buddha conveyed his mind to his disciples and created in them that same state of consciousness. So they become, in a sense, like one. They become the same being, although they're different people, but their essence becomes the same. So there's a mind to mind transmission throughout time of these teachings of what is true. And that's what's so important about acknowledging the lineage is that that being that you're like sitting with now is a descendant of the Buddha, for example. So you're like literally sitting with the Buddha, receiving those teachings directly into your mind. But you can't get that if you're just like, necessarily reading someone's book. It is kind of a similar thing though. Even with a master, someone like Thich Nhat Hanh, he takes a state of consciousness, puts it into words, and then that becomes like the little virus that we read when we read the book. But on a deep level, that happens when you sit and you do face-to-face teaching, which I think is something unique to Zen, or at least unique to Buddhism, because maybe they do it in Tibetan as well. But you sit with the teacher once a week and you check in about what's going on in your practice, what you're seeing, what's on your mind, what emotions or experiences are coming up. If you're having a hard time at the monastery, you get to like kind of talk about whatever it is that you want. And that it's such a precious opportunity to sit with someone who is like a deeply realized master. But it's just on the surface, normal chill guy from rural Georgia. That was like the abbot of the monastery. So there's so many layers to it, but unbroken mind to mind transmission. It's so important to sit with, because then you get into people, especially in the New Age movement, who just kind of make up their own practices. They're their own teacher. And yes, there is something to be said about intuition and doing, like, kind of having this inner knowing of what your mind, body, spirit needs. But having a teacher can help keep you in check and keep you on the path, because if you start like astral traveling, you're going to think like, oh my gosh, I've done it, I've become enlightened. But you tell a teacher that, they're like, keep going. You're getting distracted by the fireworks. What we're trying to do is, like, you can use the example of climbing a mountain. We're trying to reach the top. We're not trying to like hang out at every lake and look at every beautiful vista. We're trying to reach the top, and getting distracted by the experiences that we see that we have in meditation. That's what they are, is they're distractions, they're fireworks, and they can pull us off the path. So it's really important to have a teacher who's been there before, who's walked that path that you're trying to walk, to hold you accountable and be able to
Right.
point at some of the pitfalls.
A guy.
When to go.
If you were gonna go hike Mount Everest, you would have a Tibetan guy probably.
And then,
He's done it 100 times. Walk with you through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even in Christianity, the footprints in the sand concept, but like Jesus is your guide. That he was the guy for that group of people.
Yeah.
And interesting, like the idea of like there being the lineage, and paying homage to Buddha was the master who initiated this person and all the way down. But the same thing is in Christianity with the apostolic dissension. You have Jesus, and then you have from him to the disciples, and then from each of those, the church, etc. That goes all the way. I mean, even the sons of Noah, Shem, all that stuff. Abraham has, everything branches off from a source at some point, whatever it is that you think that is. But it's all. No one has an original thought. These are all things that get passed down, is what I'm trying to say. Like, even in the New Age, you brought up New Age stuff. If you go read like Liberation by Father Yod, who was like the dude in the 60s, he had a bunch of ladies and all that kind of thing. But I don't think anything he taught was like bad. He wasn't like, it didn't seem to be abusive. But my problem with a lot of the New Age stuff is that you have these like people who seem to be pretending like they're the first person to fucking come up with this idea. And all of the New Age people were like reading Blavatsky and pretending like they were the first people to say it. That I find, like, they don't have that reverence up the chain. It's a little bit weird. It's a cult.
Yeah.
It's the word I'm looking.
Yeah, then it becomes that where you're worshiping like the person who brought teachings, because Blavatsky studied in the East. Like, she was like deeply apprenticed with other masters and brought the teachings to the West. And so for then you to just worship Blavatsky without recognizing there's a much deeper human to human lineage, then we become ungrounded in something. And I think, like, even in Christianity, before you can become a priest and lead your own denomination, you have to mentor with someone who's in that position, so that way you can hold that responsibility well, and you're given authorization to, okay, yes, you have a sufficient understanding of the teachings of what it means to walk this path. You have the blessing to go out and spread this as it needs to be spread, which is crazy that you can wind up with people who then get into such corrupt acts. Like, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but it is a fact that so many priests in the Catholic Church were known pedophiles. And it's like, why does that happen?
That's
I don't-
it's the trickster. That's the whatever that archetype is. Like, with great power comes great responsibility. The more you understand this stuff, you can be, you can go the right hand path or the left hand path. You could be a white magician, you could be a black magician, or whatever you want. Any religious lens that someone wants to view that through, even if you're completely secular about it. Like, if you're like a new atheist and you don't believe in any kind of spirituality, but you do believe in morals, wherever you got those from, you could be a shitty person, or you could be a person who uses good morals and doesn't harm other people, or use other people for your gain, right? It's the same principle. You just view it through however you want to put it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that you can be an atheist and have no spirituality, but you can still be very moral because you have a basic sense of like, well, what affects them affects me too. So I should live by this principle, which I think something I keep coming back to is like the importance of cultivating love. And in Buddhism, one of the practices that they do is called metta, and that means loving kindness. And so there's something so important, and Jesus talked about this too, of the importance of developing the heart. Because when you feel very strongly in your body what someone else is going through, because that's what Jesus was doing when he healed. He would take the sickness out of their body and basically put it in his own. And then because he had access to so much universal energy, he could just like flush it out of his system. But that's what he did. So when you feel someone else's emotions, when you know where someone is at energetically, then you're going to act from this place of like, well, what affects them is also going to affect me because I feel their emotions in my body, right? Like that's the importance of developing the heart of love, because out of that arises sort of an objective set of morals. If I feel you and you feel me, we're not going to do things to hurt each other, because if I do something to you that hurts you, it's going to hurt me because I feel your emotions, So I think it's interesting that like they always say love is the answer, but it literally is, because you form this like deep bond, or this oneness with another person.
I completely ironically, I learned loving kindness from one of the most famous atheists who's ever lived, because Sam Harris in his app, because I did his like waking up app or whatever it's called a long time ago.
Wait, Sam Harris?
Yeah, and it's a great app. Like, if you're just like you don't have any spiritual beliefs or whatever, but you want to learn how to meditate, like you were saying earlier, like to relieve stress or whatever, like Sam Harris, while a devout atheist, is applying all of these principles to his meditation app. Like, so I learned the concept of like loving kindness, like, like the stages of like, okay, visualize yourself looking at someone who you deeply love, and then visualize yourself looking at someone you feel completely indifferent to, and then like think about someone you fucking hate and want to die, and all of the time just like picture them being happy from afar and wish them well, and then move on with your life and stop hating that person or whatever. I literally learned that from like the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, Sam Harris.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that kind of gets into like the Neoplatonist school, where you use like contemplation to get to deep states of meditation. Like you first contemplate, I don't remember which direction they go, but they contemplate like, if you're, and I've walked through this meditation with someone who's deeply versed in the Neoplatonist school. They'll be like, okay, first contemplate physical beauty. So for me, I think about like a very symmetrical woman that it has certain features, whatever. And so I imagine that face, and then you basically apply the physical all the way to the most abstract. So you walk yourself from like something that you think is physically beautiful to something that is like, well, why is that thing beautiful? Oh, it's beautiful because it's symmetrical, informed by nature. Therefore, nature is beautiful. Why is nature beautiful? Well, like, why are we moving? So you kind of work your way all the way up the ladder to the abstract ideal of beauty itself, and you merge like with that ideal. It's a really kind of cool system of meditation they do. So it sounds like Sam Harris is teaching something like that, which can be very deeply healing and creating more compassion for even the people that you hate. Because like that's ultimately how we're going to get to world peace. You're going to start by liking yourself. You're going to learn to love your family members, even if you hate them and disagree with them. And I don't say that lightly because I've had really difficult family members that I hate their personality, and I'm okay to admit that, but I love them for who they are at their core. And like, even though they say things that piss me off, I still have a relationship with them because I need to learn to be in that fire of being upset and angry and loving too. And then once you learn to love your family, you have peace in the family, then you can extend that to peace in the community and world peace. But like you need to go through those levels of learning to love even people you hate while you're with them and still choose to be with them, because when they show you a shadow and you run away, that makes the shadow go deeper. The roots get deeper. Versus
Shadow
when you
is
can
a very
in
good
that
word.
shadow with them and help them get untangled, that makes the whole world better, you know?
I do agree with you in principle. I I also think that there are situations where someone is like beyond your immediate ability to save. Like
Yeah,
I I'm a big fan of the whole like never leave someone behind thing. And then that being too attached to that has gotten me lost in the fireworks, as you said earlier, many, many, many times. Where it's like
totally.
I've realized with certain, individuals, it's like I am not prepared. I do not have the skill set to help you out of this situation. And I I try to look at it like, again, if we're talking about like personifying our thoughts perhaps. I don't hate you. I hate the demon on your shoulder that is telling you to do or making you do the things that you do that are awful. That's what I
Mhm,
hate. Like
mhm,
that's something that I can't fix. I'm not gonna exercise you. I'm not trained to do that yet. You know, I'm not gonna spray you with holy water, because it won't fix this problem. Like that's a battle you're gonna have to fix, and that might be several lifetimes down the road. So what I'm
mhm,
not saying like I hate you, and I'm not saying I'm abandoning you, but what I'm saying is we're gonna have to meet again along this path somewhere down the
mhm,
road because
mhm,
you can't.
mhm,
It's like trying to save a drowning person who's kicking and screaming. Like you have a choice now. It's like, do two people drown or does one person drown? And it's really rough to be in that scenario. And unfortunately, I think I've been in
mhm.
that scenario quite a few times.
Yeah, and there you bring up such a good point because there is some discernment that is needed
Yeah.
in order to know, like, well, what is actually the most skillful action. You can't save someone else. They have to go through the inner transformation. They have to be ready to let go of something. And I think that where certain strains, especially of Buddhist thought, get sort of co-opted or misunderstood is that you need to be compassionate and loving in all circumstances. But
Yes.
actually, like, then I bring in the kind of what the Bhagavad Gita says about dharma, doing your duty, right? That's like, and they frame it, all of these teaching, as Arjuna is going to war against his family members, and he's like, well, what do I do? Because like I want to be like kind, I want to love. These are my family members, and we do have to take actions that are not on the surface what you would think of as being kind, but ultimately they are loving,
Mm.
right? Like we were talking about earlier with like a parent that does the homework for their child. Like that's kind, it's not loving. What is loving is getting this person to be able to do something on their own or go through the transformation that they need on their own to be a more whole person. That is what's loving. And sometimes you have to take yourself out of that situation by being honest with yourself of like, I actually can't deal with this at this time. And that's okay to just admit that that's where you are and be like, dude, I can't be around this person right now. They bug the shit out of me. And maybe your absence stirs something in them that then starts that change process. But it was only by doing something you felt was unkind or unloving that got them to move in the direction that is best for them, which is ultimately also what's best for you. I know that gets kind of abstract, but you bring up a great point of like needing to discern that the principle can't always be like loving kindness and compassion. Sometimes compassion is fierce.
It is a necessary part of the hero's journey archetype that the master leaves you to your own devices. Like, Merlin abandons King Arthur in his time of need for a very specific reason. Jesus leaves the apostles, sends them out on their own, and then eventually dies and leaves Earth to leave us all on our own. Buddha ascended, like, this is part of the story. And it's the same story over and over and over again. But yes, like, with someone who is stuck in that scenario, like, you can do all you can. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Like, so my approach to these things is like, give them all the tools that I can. Like, hey, maybe you should like read this book, or I don't know, go to church, or whatever the fuck it is. Go talk. It could be go talk to a psychiatrist, get some help, or figure this out on your own. I can't help you, and then leave. And then I pray one day, and I've had this happen to me many times, and I have been on the other side of this, where I go back to a person who I fucking hated for what they did to me in the past, and I'm like, thank you so much. I just now, like 10 years later, realized why you did that, and it made so much sense, and I really appreciate the knowledge you imparted on me, and also why you had to go. Thanks for that. And yeah, I've also been in those situations where it's like, you're gonna thank me later, I'm out of here, and then later I get that call, could be years later, where it's like, dude, you're like the only person who I actually trust to tell this thing to that was bothering me all that time, or something like that. And that's a huge deal. Sometimes that's the best thing to do. It's the best move. And I hate that, because my instinct is always like, I'm like borderline effeminate in how much I just want to like hug and coddle and care for someone in need. Like, it's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, that's not always the right answer. It's not always what this person needs. Yeah.
So now
It's
you're an
hard.
entrepreneur and an author.
Now I'm an entrepreneur and an author. Yeah. So after being in the monastery, I was there for a year, and it was every month we do session, which is a silent week. So you like basically the equivalent would be like you do an ayahuasca retreat each week. Like you drop in as deep as you can into the mind, into the field of reality, into your whatever this thing is. And then you come back out and you learn to integrate for 3 weeks. Then you drop back in and you're silent for a week. The only time you speak is with a teacher for like 15 minutes, maybe, unless they ring you out of the room for saying something, you know, um, maybe obnoxious. So I did that for about a year, and it was so beautiful and deep and enriching, and allowed so much old stuff to be cleared out. And then while I was there, I fell in love. And dating is against the monastery policy unless you are coming in as a monastic couple, or unless you come in as a couple, like then you're fine. There are two monastic couples there. The abbot and his wife met as monks in their 20s and have been married for 45 years, and she's not even a monk anymore, but he is still a monastic. And then there's another monastic couple. So Zen has kind of like adapted the form of Buddhism to serve an American audience. That being said, I fell in love, and she left before I left the monastery. And so I was there for a couple months, and she was kind of on this, I need to go on this pilgrimage. It's urgent. It can't wait. Either I do it alone or you come with me. And I had always said like, yes, I want to like join you on this thing. So then we found like I left the monastery in April of last year, April
What did they
2020.
say when you decided to leave? Like, what was the
Oh, so
reaction?
yeah, I was supposed to stay until September of 2024. So I did leave a little early. Um, and there were like I had so many conversations with each of the head monks. They would like call me into the private room to do face-to-face teaching. And, they're like, you're a good person. We love having you here. And we understand that you're absolutely free to make your own decisions, and we want the best for you.
Mm.
And what's also true is you did make a commitment to be here for a certain amount of time. And in this environment, all we have is our word. So it's on you to discern, is breaking your word the best thing to do in this situation? Like, we'll still love you. Whatever you choose, you leave us, we love you. We wish you the best genuinely. And also consider like the impact that it'll have. There's a certain way of leaving where we can really celebrate and be with you, versus a way of leaving where it's kind of bittersweet. And ultimately I felt like this is what I had to do. And I look back and believe that coming here to Southern California with this girl that I met at the monastery that was the best decision I could have made, even though there was a lot of like turmoil and heartbreak involved. And so we
Are you still together?
no.
Hey, yes. This is the moment in Star Wars when Yoda is telling Luke, "You're not done training," and he's like, "No, I have to go save Han and Leia right now." And then Obi-Wan is like, "You're making a mistake, but you're free to go. Like, you could do whatever you want, but you're not done training yet." And then, he has to come back in the Return of the Jedi. But yes, that's so fucking good. That you have to read this book. I swear, you're gonna love this. It's called The Brother of the Third Degree.
Brother
And
that down.
yeah, and it's like this guy who's like in a secret society kind of thing. Like, it's an interesting book because it kind of predicts World War One. It's written prior to World War One.
Please.
But like this guy and this girl meet in the lodge, and he's in love with her, but it's not allowed. And constantly throughout the story, he's presented with the choice of like, do you want this or do you want that? And there's no wrong choice. You can do whatever you want. And each time that he chooses to set that aside and go, the path of ascension instead, he ends up getting it all works out later kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
All the way up the chain. Not to spoil any of the story, like that's really not a spoiler. There's much more to it, but yes.
And
That's your hero's journey, man. That's so great.
Yeah, dude, for real. I've been really working with that idea, the hero's journey, and dissecting like my own my own journey. Like especially as I wrote a book on this journey and the transformation that happened and the events that happened. I document the stuff we talked about earlier with Astral. I document like some of the Buddhist teachings and Buddhist practices that I pick up. Like in the middle of the book, there's a whole training manual in Zen. Not that I'm the most qualified, but like I recognize that when I was looking for these teachings, they were not to be found. The only book that I found was like Alan Watts talking about Zen, and it was very like abstract and kind of he was intellectualized. He's a beautiful writer, beautiful speaker, but he was intellectualizing like the state that he had found himself in without letting us know how the cat got up in the tree. So that's like, I've been really unpacking this journey. And so then I leave the monastery, and this girl and I are going through, we're on a pilgrimage. I thought we were going to maybe go all around the world because that's kind of what we talked about. We start in California, and we're going to different temples and religious sites. And we find ourselves like, okay, there are currents that we're swimming in, things that we're swimming towards. We're kind of like birds migrating. And certain things have to happen at certain times. So let me give you an example of that. I was supposed to stay in the monastery until like September of 2024. Like I said, I left in April. And when we leave, like we have a car, we have a place. And we kept getting delayed for some reason as we were trying to start on this pilgrimage to head from Southern California up north and then back down and then maybe abroad. We kept getting delayed at the start. And like, while we're in it, we're fighting. We're like, why? Like, we keep getting delayed, and we're mad at each other, and there's all these things to work out, and it seems like, we're stuck in this weird little loop of the world of suffering. Actually, this delay is like, I see it genuinely as divine intervention.
You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. Whatever happened to the good old days, when computer role-playing games spent more time telling great stories than stressing you out with season passes and needless grinding? Call of Regnar is our effort to bring back the best in RPGs. Play in the immersive world as two friends adventure into a murder mystery that lands them in the middle of a battle between gods. Head over to callofsaregnar.com. That's call of SAREGNAR.com for more info, and be sure to wishlist on Steam. You're muted.
How about now?
You're good. Divine
Okay.
intervention. Just roll from there. It's good.
Yeah. So um, it's divine intervention that delayed our trip to get us to arrive to Crotona, the esoteric school of theosophy, on the exact day. This is a complete accident of their 100th birthday, where they have a whole week where it's open to the public. Normally, they're kind of closed off to the public. You can visit the library, but we got there on the exact day and met the whole residential body. And if we'd gone one day before, we wouldn't have met a single person. And by meeting the residential body, who's all like 70 plus years old, and we're the only 20-year-olds there, they're like, "What are you guys doing here?" And we explain the story. They're like, "You should come do some residential study here. We normally don't open our place out to people, but you guys are in the right place." So Ojai like opened itself, right? And so then we stayed for a couple months. And then I was like, well, what do I want to do for work? I don't want to hop back into the corporate world. And when I was in a meditation retreat in February, because we do the silent week every month, I had this sudden idea to start selling like super pure ceremonial grade cacao. Because there's not many people in that lane in the US yet. There's some people that are doing it, but I felt like there was a good opportunity to help bring this stuff that I'd been like enjoying as a daily latte every day for the last 2 or 3 months. Like, oh, I could totally start a business bringing this stuff up from Central or South America to the US. And that would be a good thing, helping people to not be so caffeinated all the time, but be working with theobromine, which is a heart opener. That's what cacao has been used for thousands of years, as a tool to open up the heart and help us connect more. So like that'd be a good thing for society if like everyone switched from being coffee, putting themselves up in the mind more, to being more centered in the heart. So in February, sitting in meditation, and the whole idea, the logo, the packaging, the ways that it would be sold, the website, all of that kind of just flashed before my eyes. So I stuck it in my back pocket. I had a practice of writing down every business idea that I've ever had and just putting it in my notes. And so this one was just kind of ready for when I got to Ojai, which is a hippie town, kind of spiritual, kind of health oriented. And I was like, okay, I'm going to pull this thing out of my back pocket and start doing that. And right as my permits were passed, I applied to the farmer's market. Well, the farmer's market normally has a year-long wait list. But the chocolate vendor that does nice homemade chocolate, he could no longer come for the summer because he had a long COVID complication, which gave me the perfect one-to-one replacement in at the exact right moment. If I would have like waited until September when I was supposed to be out of the monastery, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. Ojai would not have opened. If I would have gone sooner, he still would have been a vendor there. So it's like all these things just worked in such perfect timing. And so I've been just like doing cacao full time. I sell at the markets, I sell in a couple stores, I sell online. I would love to like see this thing really take off and move into a lot of grocery stores, bring cacao back to its pure form, because the model that we use is not buying beans for cheap from Central or South America. We say, no, you make us a finished product in like a handcrafted traditional way that's not processed using machines, where it's prayed over, it's blessed, it's all done by hand by an indigenous owned women's co-op, right? Like that puts a lot of money, keeps a lot of the value creation in Guatemala, which is where I source from. And it gives people in the US a super premium, like functional, good feeling product that they share with other people that they love and drink in a more mindful setting, as opposed to just binge eating chocolate bars that have no potency. This stuff is super potent. So that's like, it's kind of I've thought a lot about like, what does right livelihood look like in action?
Mm.
And this is the model that I found. So I've been doing this full time. I would love to see it take off. Um, And then in my free time, since I kind of have won back all my time now that I'm fed, I decided to write this book. And I've been like, I think being in an entrepreneurial like world, I kind of get to hone all of my skills. Like I'm constantly refining different skills, from like designing things, graphics, to making videos and editing, to web design, constantly refining copy. um, there's so many different skills to be working on all the time. You have to wear every hat, which is so fun for me because it's constant novelty. So now that I have all my time back, I like wrote this book, been exploring other ways to create well-being. And like with the profits that I make from my cacao business, I offer a free cacao and meditation event where I walk through a couple different forms of meditation. One is like just sitting, basic instruction, and then there's another loving kindness practice that we do. And we do like a balancing breathing, like a particular pranayama that comes from India, that I use the profits from the business to host, so I can have a space. I give cacao out for free, and it's right on generosity. So that's what I'm up to nowadays.
That's a really good path. I'm a fan of all of this, man. Like,
Dude, thank you.
you have become your own master. You no longer are a slave to the corporation. You went on your hero's journey. You chased the girl. You lost her. So now you got to find the right one.
That's
That's-
right. That's right. That'll come when the time is right. I
think
trust.
I think it'll happen when you least expect it, and
It always does.
you probably already know her somehow. If I had to guess, but I don't know. I mean, I can only offer like my perspective.
Mhm.
I was, like I told you before, like deep down in a fucking pit of just drinking and fucking smoking weed and being a miserable person, chasing the corporate dragon.
Mhm.
And all at the same time is like almost just a year ago now, I came to a screeching halt with my time in Denmark. I was like, fuck, this job is not going to continue on. Like, there was all kinds of corporate shit going on in the games industry, and I was just lost. And this young lady who I had been friends with never had a thought about being in a relationship. Like, at best, it was like, well, that'll never happen, obviously. She was deployed overseas in the Middle East and had texted me, or actually, I had just out of nowhere, one night, I don't know, I was probably fucking sad and drunk or whatever, like, cold called her to be like, "Hey, I just want you to let you know, like, I heard you were overseas, like, I hope you're okay. If you ever need anything, give me a call. Just looking out for you." Right? So then we had agreed that when she came back through Ramstein on her way home, I'd come hang out because I'm already in the area, right?
Mhm.
So I made that pilgrimage. I like, when this finally happened, I had just like severed ties with this company. I have to move back to America now, and I have a limited amount of time and budget to do that. And then
Mhm.
I fucking just was pissed off. So I went on like a Euro trip. I went to like Austria, Slovakia, spent like a week in Prague, and then I came home, and she was like on 72-hour notice that
Mm.
when I'm gonna go to Germany, right? Leave where I'm at. So I'm like, I don't know when that's gonna be. I'll just try to be in Germany vaguely at that time. But my trip ended and I went back to Denmark. And then the day I landed, I got the 72-hour notice. So then I booked fucking plane tickets. I took like 2 buses, 2 planes, and then 5 trains, and then another bus, and then walked probably 30 minutes to get to the gates of Ramstein Air Base. And we're married now. And I moved back to America May 5th of 2024, and my first son was born May the 5th, 2025.
Wow.
So
You're a new
I don't know if
dad.
that's exactly how it's going to
Congratulations.
work for you. Thank you.
Holy
I don't know if that's
shit.
how it's going to work for you. I'm just saying, like, you seem like you're making all the right moves right now. You own your own business. You're not working for anybody. You're not anybody's fucking slave bitch anymore. Are you gonna go back to Dagobah at some point?
Dagobah?
Yeah, that's the planet where Yoda lives.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've thought about it, and I kind of like I did my time doing monastic discernment,
Mm.
and I found like that's not for me right now. But I did live in that. I felt what that would be like, and I think that where I'm at now is I've found that balance of how to retain that state of mind that's being like constantly cultivated in the rest of the world. Because in a monastery, in a Zen monastery, you're doing 2 hours of meditation, 2 to 3 hours of meditation a day, and then you're doing 6 hours of work a day.
Yeah.
And you don't have you're kind of just constantly on the move anyway. Most of your day is spent working. So I'm like if as long as I just meditate in the morning, meditate at night, and like I say a particular prayer that I got from the monastery um, before every meal,
Yep.
even still, and I like you can totally be a monk outside in the actual world without needing to be in a monastery. It's just like a model that hasn't really been developed that well yet. But there are people that are doing it, and I'm trying to make it work of like be able to take some time to just do extended periods of meditation when that's needed, or maintain a daily practice of meditation. And um yeah, so no plans to return yet. And I know exactly, like I know you're right that the person will show up when it's least expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it all
You will not
works.
see it coming. I'm making the prediction. So when it happens, you can shoot me a text or something and be like, "Oh my god, it happened," and then it'd be great. But
So it sounds like when you were on your journey, you like knew that this would be something serious. You had this like gut feeling, like I'm gonna take multiple planes, multiple trains, walk 1,000 miles for this
here's what
person.
I knew. I knew I cared a lot about this person, like, who is now my wife. I knew for sure I was not gonna go back on my word that I will meet you in Germany. I had I was so fucked up, like, I had no intention, like, at all of it becoming like, "Oh, this is gonna be a romantic relationship." I even told multiple people leading up to it. They were like, "What are you doing? You're going to Germany for what?" And I'm like, "Oh, my friend, she just got back from a war zone. I kinda wanna go be there for her. Uh, I've known her for, like, a long time. I would hate to be alone in a hotel room and not have a friend around after having done that." So I was just like, I didn't know where it was leading. I just knew I have to do this. Like,
Hmm.
it wasn't negotiable in my mind. I'm like, despite all of the other reasons why I should be packing my apartment and breaking a lease and all that kind of, I was just like, going to Germany at least for these 3 days, and then I'll figure out all that afterwards. And
Hmm.
then after I left Germany, I was like, now I know what I must do. I need to get back to America. And then I think like 2 weeks later, I was like on a fucking airplane. I was like, I'm out of here. It was it was rough. It was like, so now I get to throw it in her face all the time. It's like, oh, I moved continents for you. Like, I've literally chased you across the world, both directions. So
Hmm.
you're stuck with me forever now.
Hmm.
No, it was the best thing in the world. And I could have never, like, the day we met, I could have never said that's going to be the mother of my child. There was,
Hmm.
couldn't have made that prediction at all.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
And I love to think like as you're going through the process of trying to see her in Germany, like the only reasons that your mind can come up with are like, yeah, I like care about this person and I would want the same thing if I was in that situation. But you're in your heart knew what it was doing. It was pursuing someone that you felt this like deep, soul level connection with, it sounds like.
Yeah, you talked about divine intervention earlier. Like, my mind didn't know what to do, but like you said, my heart was in the right place. It was just like, you have to
Yeah,
do this.
yeah.
Like, I didn't consider it any other option other than to, like, you gave your word. Your word is your bond. Like, if you
Mhm.
break your word, you look like a giant asshole. And you let someone down who you care about. So don't do that. So,
Mhm.
and it was a pretty bad day because I like woke up out of a fucking 3-day alcohol stupor. I was fucking like it was just bad. Like, I was like in a really tough spot, and then I have to like get. It was almost like the universe was physically making me get out of my own shit to do this because like I
Yeah.
didn't know what else to do. So get up, walk to the bus stop, get on the bus, get off at that next bus stop, get on that next bus. Okay, walk into the airport, go through security, get on the plane, get off the plane, get on the next plane. How do I get to, because I landed in like Frankfurt, and Ramstein is a long way from Frankfurt. So I'm like, how do I get to Ramstein by tonight? So I have to go to a fucking, train station. I'm like speaking in English to a bunch of Germans. Like, how do I get to Ramstein on a map? And the lady's like, oh, American. Ugh. Because Germans, they don't like our our
Right.
um they like order and for things to go the correct way, and I understand that. I respect their culture. But
Mhm.
then she's like, "Okay, you just basically need to get on this train," and then I don't know. So I'm like following Google Maps. I got off at the wrong place, like the wrong stop. So it literally took me what should have been 2 or 3 trains, 5 trains to arrive in the nearest train station, and then I stood at a bus stop for hours because it was like the buses were off schedule, which is rare in Germany, but for some reason, and I walk up to the bus stop, standing there, the only other people in the fucking city that I can see are this couple with their baby, and then I overhear them speaking, and I'm like, "Holy shit, you guys are from America. What are you doing here?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, we're waiting on the bus, but it's always late, but if we hang out for a while, we'll probably find it." I was like, "Sick. I have to get to Ramstein Air Force Base. Which way should I go?" And they're like, "Oh, that's the right bus." So I get on the bus and go to swipe my card, and the guy's like, "Oh no, it's cash only, man." It was like this, like I don't know where it was from, probably Northern Africa or something like that. And he's just like, "It's cash only." Luckily, I had a few euros in my pocket. I just threw cash at him, and then he takes me to the city of Ramstein, which is like nowhere, and it's an abyssal, tiny little town. The only reason it exists is because there's a giant Air Force base next to it. And then it's 30 minutes to walk from that bus stop to the front gate of the base. And then I had to sit in the waiting area and wait for myself to get sponsored onto the base because my military ID had expired. It was
Mm.
just like none of that deterred me for any reason. I don't know why. Like, I could not at the time have predicted where it would go.
Mhm. You just
But yeah,
kept taking the next step. You're like, I just have to do this. It's going to happen no matter what.
mm, yeah.
Just a steamroller. It was like testing your faith each time. Like, okay, here's not 40.
My wife's name is Faith. I swear to
Wow.
God.
Oh my God, man. Dude.
That's what I needed. And yeah, then I got sober, and then now I'm a dad.
Wow, man. It's really great to see. And how old are you?
30.
30. It's great to see young people getting married, having kids, because I feel like it's so prominent right now in our culture to like buy into the whole like the world is ending, humans are a cancer on the planet, like I'm not gonna have any kids because humans are a cancer on the planet, or I'm not gonna get married because I don't want one partner forever. So it's great to see other young people like doing the thing. 'Cause I don't have there's not many examples of that I have in my life, you
My
know?
cousin just got a vasectomy. He got married and immediately got a vasectomy so that he would never have to worry about having kids. And I'm like, I mean, I respect that, but I'm like, why? Like, who would want to bring a kid into this world? And I'm like, that's the fucking shittiest excuse I've ever heard. Make the world better for your child.
Exactly, exactly. Like,
Ra-
it
Raise
doesn't
your kid to be
change.
a good person. Yeah.
Yeah, the world's not gonna change unless we all take accountability for it and be like, "Okay, well, it starts with me raising someone that's not a piece of shit. Like raising, like being conscious, being present, being healed too, and raising someone who is then a blessing. Like their whole presence becomes medicine to the world. Everyone they meet. I know that sounds like really idealistic, but it's like that's true. Have you ever met someone who like didn't grow up with insane amounts of generational trauma? They're like a walking hug, a walking smile, and it's like easeful and good things happen around them. They're like it's crazy. It's crazy. So I really respect that
Man, I'll tell you one more divine intervention story.
in me.
Okay. This is late last year, like in the fall. I'm at home for 2 weeks while my wife, she was not my wife yet. She was still my about to be wife, like fiance, right?
Mhm.
Went on a 2-week vacation with her family to Germany or to Italy, right? And I stayed home and I had nothing better to do than get drunk. So I just drank 2 weeks away into oblivion like an asshole. And I felt terrible. And I was like really, really psychologically fucked up. Like not just from doing too much drinking, but like I am not in a good place. I don't know why. I was like, this is bad. But I refused to like reach out to anybody or ask for help. And I was like kind of alone in that city. So I didn't have any friends to like really talk to.
Yeah.
And it was the morning that I was supposed to get up and like today I have to go pick her up from the airport, which was like an hour and a half away. And I was like, I have to get my shit together enough to go pick her up because if I don't, then now I've failed everybody. Now I'm a total ass. So can't do that. So I sobered up and begrudgingly, painfully made that trip. But before this, I was laying in the bed and I was trying to figure out like how am I going to get my shit together. And I just like prayed really long. I was like, I need a reason to stop doing this to myself. Please give me a reason to stop doing this. I know that I'm supposed to choose it and all that stuff, but like I need something to make me not do this anymore. I picked her up from the airport. We drove home. I unpacked her bags and she's like, hey, can you open that zipper right there? I'm like, yes. And it was all these Italian baby clothes that she bought because she found out while she was over there that she was pregnant. And that was like my moment of like,
Yeah.
if this isn't it, I don't know what is. Because I
Mhm.
couldn't see myself being the way I was and being a present, productive member of a family.
Yeah. Dude. It's like it was like in a way a rock bottom, it sounds like. I was like, dude, I'm on my knees, I'm praying, and I don't know. And then immediately the sign hits you of like your life is about to completely change.
Yes. Like,
And your life is no longer gonna be about you and your pain and even your gratification. It's gonna be about the well-being of like this other little being.
yeah, it was like,
Dude.
this is the thing. You asked for this. So here you go. Challenge. And I didn't have to. I could have just been, like many people are. They're like, whatever. But I asked for it. Like to whoever was listening, like, I need this.
Mhm.
It gave it to me. And now I'm just like, okay. And now every day I'm like, I don't just feel like I need to not drink because it's better for my health. I feel like, oh, I made a deal and I can't go back on that deal. Like,
Now we gotta live with, like, what we
yeah,
got, which is this
yeah,
new way of being. Yeah.
man. We we should probably wrap this up pretty soon, but it's been really, really cool to talk to you. I'm really glad you reached out. You'd mentioned you had trouble getting people to respond. Can you tell
Mhm.
me a little bit about how that's been for you?
Well, so I've been, like, I signed up for this newsletter thing that's trying to get people with a story to tell connected to podcasts who want people with stories to tell. And I've reached out to every podcast that, is appropriate for what I wanna talk about. Um, through this platform. I've reached out to every podcast that I can think of that I've ever listened to. Even the like full shot in the dark ones, because if you don't ask, the answer is always a no. So I'm like, I'll just put myself out there and see what happens. And just like nobody has even responded. So part of me was like, maybe they're not even getting my message.
Possible.
And yeah, which totally, because I know that they probably, when they put out a guest, they're seeking a guest, that they get a million responses because it's all these people with some story to tell that have just written some book but yeah, so I just haven't really gotten any responses. And so that makes me wonder, okay, is it something that I'm saying? Or is it like they're just not getting it? Or maybe, no, it's not the right fit. But I'm so glad that we got on, because this has been so fun. It's like I said, it's great to meet someone who like is also wondering about these same things, of like wondering about the path, trying to figure out what it means to be a human. How do we live well? How do we commit and come back to these like in your case, these traditional family values of like being a husband, having children, being the father that's going to pass on love and prosperity to their kids. You're thinking about these things, you're like, fuck, you gotta quit drinking. Not every alcoholic, the parent does that. Like mine did not,
Yeah, I get it.
and so dude, it's just, I'm glad we got to connect.
The funny thing is that, so he was born 2 weeks ago, right? And
Crazy.
I had missed a week because I'm usually really good about like booking up stuff ahead of big events, but it didn't work that way. So I missed a week of the podcast, and I'm like, well, shit. Now that I'm home again, I get all this settled. All right, I need to get back to work. And I had gotten like a cold email from some representative at podcastguest.com, which I've always just been like, I'm the one reaching out to people, always. Like, hey, you want to do this thing, or just like meet someone, like, you want to be on a podcast, that kind of deal. So podcastguest.com has like offered me, I don't know if it's a free trial or whatever the fuck, be like, hey, do you want to be listed in this month's issue? It's coming out in like a week or whatever the fuck. And I'm like, yeah, why not? I don't care. Like, sign me up. Just literally, I think I said like, sign me up. And then like I got just flooded with all kinds of applications a few days ago, right? When you got my response email, it was like me and my friend were like just going through all these, like, some of these are like weird charlatan kind of things. It's kind of you put yourself into the spiritual and or UFO categories, like you get a lot of
Yeah, I couldn't
very
imagine.
open-minded, but I think I can smell not good when I see it.
Yeah, someone who's gonna at least be able to hold the crazy against like being kind of grounded.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's people who are like, I had this amazing story that I'd like to share. And then there's people who are like, I can heal people by touching them, and and I charge this much money or whatever the fuck. I'm like, no. No, I don't think so. But yeah, and that's how we ended up together today. Like, just weird happenstance.
Dude, that's divine intervention.
Yeah, man.
We don't have, it doesn't have to be that. We can laugh. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's wrap up the recording here, and then
Awesome.
we'll talk again. We will do this again at some point.
Dude, yes, I would love to.
Thank you very much to Chandler for coming on the show. What a fucking guy. What an epic story. More stuff like that down the pipeline. So if you liked this episode, buckle up, because this is kind of the direction we're going to be going for a while. This kind of stuff. The deep questions. Make sure you go to chandlerjames.blog and grab a copy of his really, really cool book, like that Quarter Life Crisis. Get more of the details of how he ended up where he is and all that stuff, because there's no way we could cover it all in 3 hours. But yeah, I'm really blessed to have met this guy. I'm super, super stoked by the universe bringing amazing people like this into my life, and then me being able to share it with you guys. Also, make sure you check out his cacao business. Cora Cacao. And yeah, ceremonial grade cacao. It's for making stuff like chocolatey stuff. I know you want that. I want that. Gonna give some to my wife. Probably. Like soon. Cacao! It's simply divine. Thank you to all of our wonderful supporters on Patreon. You guys rule. If you would like to be a supporter of the show, you can. inthekeep.com/support. I love you. God love you. Stay in the keep. Let's take a moment to talk about Appalachia TCG. Whether you're searching for sports cards, Magic the Gathering, Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh!, they can offer you an extensive selection to suit every collector and competitor. As an official reseller, they are committed to providing authentic booster packs, singles, accessories, and rare finds that set them apart from competitors. They buy and sell lots of trading cards and toys, but their special is the Flesh and Blood trading card game, and they run official events, pre-releases, and more. Along with their ever-growing community, Appalachia TCG is the premium spot for trading, buying, and selling cards. I know what you're thinking, but I don't live in Eastern Kentucky. Well, that's the best part. You can shop online and in person. There is the official TCG player shop, eBay store, and online shop. Head on over to AppalachiaTCG.com. That's AppalachiaTCG.com. Tell them In the Keep sent you.
Hi, I'm Ben, host of the Field and Foley podcast. Every episode I sit down with incredible guests. Not just sound designers, field recorders, or musicians, but experts in everything about audio. We explore the creative process behind the sounds that shape our favorite games, films, and experiences. Whether you're an audio professional or just someone who loves great sound, Field and Foley offers deep dives, behind-the-scenes stories, and insights you won't hear anywhere else.